Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to This or That, a series where I bring you along while I try to decide between pairs of decks that I feel are sort of fitting the same niche in my collection. Whew, okay, I have to brace myself for this one because there is some really, there's some things here that I feel a little attached to even though I'm not really working with them. So we're going to dive in and look at the very first pairing, and that is going to be the Wild Messengers Tarot versus the Tarot of Transformation. So, oh boy, I have lots of thoughts. Before I dive into my thoughts, let me just pop up on the screen the poll where you guys shared what your favorite of this pairing was. Okay, so let's break this down one deck at a time. So at the time I'm filming this, the poll is really neck and neck with the Wild Messengers Alchemical Tarot squeaking just ahead of the Tarot of Transformation. And that kind of reflects how I feel about this. So I have opposite problems with these decks, and I kind of love opposite things. So let me dive into it. So let me talk about the Tarot of Transformation first. I will admit that actually one of my big issues with this deck is this terrible cardstock. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's bad. It's super thin and papery. It feels it's really thin. And I've thought about maybe rebacking this deck. Now I did get this deck in a trade. I think the artwork of this deck, let's just zoom us in, is so stunning. I really wanted, I think, to get to know this deck, but since I have brought it into my collection, not one time have I said, you know what, I'm going to spend a month with the Tarot of Transformation. I'm going to really work with and get to know this deck. And that to me is kind of telling. This actually reminds me a little bit of the Five of Swords, by the way. It's really pretty. I almost feel like one thing that would be interesting with a deck like this would be to trim it in its entirety and just work with the artwork intuitively. However, I believe I've encountered some information through other people, maybe on Facebook. I'm not sure if there was a video about it, but trimming this deck is a challenge because not all the artwork is sized exactly the same way. I don't know. So I've just never really taken the time to get to know it. But the cards, the artwork itself is just really, really beautiful and captivating to me. But that said, I've got lots of beautiful artwork in my collection, decks that I know and love and have intimate relationships with. And this one, as beautiful and, I mean, really, truly, as beautiful as it is, it just languishes. And I'm not going to lie, the cardstock is part of that, as is the fact that I know I can't really properly trim it. So I feel like I'm really limited in what I can do with this deck. Now, with that said, as I understand it, the guidebook actually has a lot of really good information in it. But I almost wish that this was a full color guidebook with all the artwork so that I could appreciate the artwork and work with the book. I've just never been called to do it. And there are other books and decks I have that have a lot of this inner work that I don't know, that I feel like are more enjoyable to use. So that's definitely a struggle I have with the Tarot of Transformation. The Wild Messengers Alchemical Tarot, I have kind of the opposite issue with. I don't really have a relationship at all with the cards. The artwork on the cards isn't really for me. Let me just show you. I mean, they're beautiful. I want to be incredibly clear. These cards are gorgeous. And the backings have this really interesting texture. Oh, there you go. You can really see the spot gloss on this snake skin here. And then it's kind of almost matte in the other spots that aren't this snake skin. Really, really cool. This cardstock feels a little bit cardboardy to me, but it's nice. It's fun to shuffle. Oh, there's my ladybug card. Oh no. So here's the situation with this deck. I actually got this deck almost just as a way really to work with the book. I dearly wish that these cards had keywords or even key phrases that reference the beauty in the guidebook. Oh my gosh. Because unfortunately, a lot of these cards, just using this deck standalone has never appealed to me. However, oh, look at the dragon card. I love it. However, the guidebook in this deck is incredible. And basically the story with this deck is that I was gifted this book and it was just the book. So, what I did with this book when I first got it is I started looking through it, and it's beautifully done. Let's just bring it into center frame here. You do get full artwork. So you really don't need the deck to work with the book, to be completely honest. However, I loved the book so, so much. There's so much really beautiful wisdom in here. The messages, the invocations, oh my gosh. And in the majors, it's incredible. Like you get all of this really meaty information, including like a message from the animal in the card, including real, like I would say very healing kind of information. If you like decks like, say, the Dreams of Gaia, because of all of the like healing and wisdom and personal like self-worth kind of messages and things like that in the guidebook, you will love this. Like even in the minor arcana, you still get like Skunk Speaks, you still get an invocation, you still get all of this delicious wisdom in this book. It's such a good book. So I worked with this book. What I would do is whatever my daily tarot card was, no matter what deck I was working with, when I got home in the evening from work or whatever, I would always go to this book and look up the same card that I'd drawn that day just to read what it had to say about it. And I was like, I love this book so much, I should get the deck to go along with it. So the deck for me is more like an accessory to the book, if that makes any sense at all. And the hilarious thing about that is that I actually found that once I got the deck, I didn't work with the book as much because I was like, well, I should work with the book when I'm working with the deck. It kind of became this weird limiting thing. I think, now that I'm thinking about this, so I think I am ready to pass along the Tarot of Transformation. I'm going to do my normal thing, put it in purgatory for a little bit, and then find a new home for it. So I am going to declutter this. However, let's put that over here in the pile to be decluttered. However, I am thinking I'm going to let the Wild Messengers cards go. They don't have like a little white book or anything with them, so I don't know how useful that would be to somebody, but I'm not using this. I do, however, really want to keep the guidebook and continue to work with it. This would be a really great book to use like as a devotional, like basically just like work through it page by page. There's also a really great section in the back that is such an incredible, here it is, Interpreting Messengers in the Wild. Is that it? No, it starts, that's also cool. It's right here. It starts on page 297. It's The Alchemy of Awakening. This was my introduction to alchemy, and it was really what sparked my interest in alchemy in the first place, because it really describes the alchemical stages in ways that I think were really relatable, easy to understand. It's not a big section in the back, but it was enough. And it gave me, I feel like, something to really like sink my teeth into. And this is what started that whole journey for me. So I think I want to keep the book, believe it or not, and pass on the deck, which is a weird thing to do. I try not to do that but I'm sure there will be somebody out there who would be interested in just the cards, even if it's, and I think you might be able to still buy the book separately. I'm not sure. But maybe I'll check that out first and then decide. Either way, these are going to go into purgatory or whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to keep the book. So I think that's how I'm going to handle that. Okay, so that's actually 2 decks moving out. So that's pretty good. All right, so our next pairing is the Lucky Potion Oracle. And I know some of you are going to gasp. The Animal Speak Runes by Ted Andrews, which I actually have in this bag that came with the Way of the Panda Tarot Kickstarter. Isn't that cute with the panda paw? These are both unique systems. I don't know what I'm going to do here. So let me put up the poll, and you guys can see how you all have voted so far. So at the time I'm filming this, it looks like about 57% of you prefer the Animal Speak Runes or would pick those over the Lucky Potion Oracle. But let's talk about each of these so you guys know so we kind of are all on the same page. So this is the guidebook. Ted Andrews is, to me, very much like old school pagan memories and like growing up in a way for me. His book Animal Speak, and he has a book on unicorns, which actually, let me grab it because it's really unique and I don't think a lot of people have heard of it. So I actually think I showed this book in a video on unicorn stuff at some point. So it's Treasures of the Unicorn, The Return to the Sacred Quest by Ted Andrews. This is one of my most, as I mentioned, one of my most treasured possessions. Sorry, I'm getting lights in here, but I just can't be bothered to move them. Anyways, I wanted to share, my copy is signed by Ted Andrews. There's a little something private at the top, but my copy is signed by Ted Andrews, and it was signed in May of 2006. So I've been following Ted Andrews' work for a long time, and this is, in my opinion, the best magical book on, or pagan, I guess, perspective book on unicorns and unicorn lore that I've ever encountered, and it's really special to me. This one, like I said, I bought this from him in person. I went to a book signing, and anyways, this is, again, treasured possession. So I do have a fondness for Ted Andrews' work. The Animal Speak Runes, let's get into these. Okay, So these are really nice. Now these are slash were a mass market production. I'm not sure if these are still available. Somebody might have to tell me, but what I think is great about these is each one has a animal printed on it. Hello, focus please. Are we focusing? I think we are. It's hard for me to tell in my viewfinder. But anyways, so it has the name of the animal. It has the image of the animal. Let's zoom in. That might be better. There we go. And it has a keyword, right? So you get trust in self, crocodile. Reclaim, the jaguar. I think these are really cool. I don't really reach for them a lot. And I was like, maybe I'm ready, shapeshift for the raven. Maybe I'm ready to let these go. But now that I have them in my hands, and I think just revisiting that Treasures of the Unicorn and like reminding myself of all the really great wisdom that Ted Andrews has, I don't know if I'm ready to let this one go. Let me zoom back out again. So, I don't know. And what I really like, oh, we lost our little raven here. And I actually really like, this is like the perfect sized bag to keep them in, this little Panda Paw bag by Kimberly San. Anyways, okay. So, yeah. I don't think I'm ready to let this go, but let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Lucky Potion Oracle. Now this is really super unique as well. Also, can we talk about the fact that it's in a potion bag and it's everything. This is one of Peggy's divided bags. So on one side of the bag, I got this in a Kickstarter, is the little mat that came with it's actually a dice rolling mat that came with this set, as well as a dice, which tells you what you can do with I'll tell you in a minute. I'll explain better. I did do a walkthrough of this, so you can definitely watch that. So here we have our little guidebook and my, I was number 47 from the Kickstarter. And so here's how this basically works. You have these cards, and each card has a potion. So here we have the magic potion, the confusion potion. I said that weird, potion, mischief, necessity, etc. So let me just do a little demo. I just think this is so cool. Also, look at the backings. I really thought, I was like, but I never reached for this. Am I ready to let this go? I don't know that I am. I'm kind of geeking out now that I've got it out. Okay, so let's pull a card, and I'll show you kind of how I work with this. You pull a card. Here we have growth. Oh, I'm out of frame. There we go. We have growth. And then you roll the dice to see, what are you doing with the potion? And here we are sharing the potion. So it's 2 little potion bottles side by side, which means to share. So then you look up the growth potion in the green section here. There it is. And you go to the little, you read the initial description here, and then you go to the one that matches the icon on your die, which is to share the potion. So let's read what this has to say. Gently glowing green, a grouping of mushrooms guides your hand to the simple potion in the dark corner of the shelf. Within the pale green liquid, a large mushroom looks at you with a single eye on the stalk. It beckons you closer with promises of answers and hope. Growth is powerful and unique, but you have to take the first step. Look for the signs around you to guide your way. And because we're sharing the potion, it says, some refuse to drink the liquid and others struggle with the stinging taste. Those who are able to consume from the bottle begin to glow an ethereal green that lights up the world around them. Find those who are able to grow with you and let you guide each other. Okay, that was a really good message. Okay, no, I'm not ready to let this go. What am I thinking? Why did I even pair these? This is so unique in my collection. I love that it feels like you're in a role-playing game in a way. Like, it's very immersive, the way that it's written. It reminds me of the way that the Elemental Power Tarot's guidebook is written, where it's describing the experience you're having, interacting with that, in this case, with the potion. This is so good. I can't. This has got to stay. Welp. No progress in this pairing, I guess. But this is why I'm doing this, right? So that I can really hone in on, I like to keep the book with the cards on one side of the divided bag. And then I like to put the rolling mat and the dice on the other side. So I'm just going to slide that in. And I like to roll it with the eyes on the outside so that when I lay it out, it lays flat. And this is like a mouse pad type material, which is my favorite for, if I'm going to get a free reading mat in a Kickstarter or something, this is my favorite type, because this is the one thing Peggy can't make for me because she sews out of cotton. So I really love getting reading cloths that are made out of that neoprene, like mouse pad material. Okay, so I'm keeping this, clearly. And I'm keeping this, clearly. So there we have it. So our next pairing is the Personal Power Oracle cards by Deja Druitt versus the Postcards from Spirit by Colette Baron Reid. And before I get into my thoughts, let me just pop up the poll. So this is another one that's at like a dead heat, with Personal Power Oracle slipping just ahead of Postcards from Spirit with just a couple percentage points. Let me kind of talk through or think through my thoughts on this. So I love Deja Druid's artwork, like a lot. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And the Personal Power Oracle deck, I think, is really just a really good one. I love the whole thing. I love the way it's designed. I love the quote on the inside, "You are very powerful, provided you know how powerful you are." Love that. The box style, the size of the cards, it's like a nice Trump-sized deck, which is common for Deja's decks. It comes with a little guidebook, which to be honest, I really never use, although it's got some really good stuff in here, including journal prompts. And then the cards themselves, which have this gorgeous magenta matte edging that they came with. My version does. I think there's been a couple versions of this deck now. I could be wrong. And the backings, which look like a mirror. I mean, it's just beautiful. I love the diversity in this deck. I love the affirmations. I find that, this is going to sound weird, but like I just feel like I do so much work in this self-worth area that I don't find myself feeling like I need an affirmation deck along this style. I think it's super helpful, particularly if you're working your way through the self-worth work, particularly if you are newer to that work or you want something that's going to really support you in keeping a focus on that work. But I've been doing it for a long time, and I kind of feel like a lot of my practices around self-worth are really embedded, and so I don't often reach for a deck like this that's going to give me such a blunt or clear message, I guess I could say. Let's zoom in so you can see the artwork better. That's better. But oh my gosh, the artwork in this deck is so pretty. I love this card, I Surrender. I love it when surrender cards feature a lot of the water element. Yeah, oh, it's so good. It's so good. But I never reach for it. I appreciate it. I love it. The cardstock's glorious. The artwork is stunning. I love that there's astrological elements throughout the cards. So all 12 zodiac signs are represented. So this was actually the card that represents Gemini. You can see that on the tattoo. Which is a cool little, I think, Easter egg in this deck. There's so much good stuff. Yeah, like this one, I believe, is Sagittarius. Is it? Am I making that up? No, that's the number on the card. Anyway, I always forget. But you can kind of hunt for the astrological signs. Like this one's Leo, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right. Oh, no, Taurus. There it is. I am abundant. Oh, sorry. Taurus is down there. I am abundant. Anyway, I babble. But my point to this is I love this card. I've always loved this card. I think she even had an option for a journal with this. I am unbreakable. Oh, so good. It's really good, and I can see how it's useful. I really can. And when I first got it, I did reach for it, and I did occasionally pull it for client readings as a bit of a little booster, but I haven't done that in a long time. I just don't think of this deck very often. So I think I am probably going to be ready to pass this one along, as beautiful as it is. It's just not one that I think to reach for very much. But let me think about that for a second. So then we have Colette Baron Reid's Postcards from Spirit. Now I got this deck after, I think, yeah, Dustin read a card from this deck during one of our 3 Fat Readers episodes. I don't use this pamphlet-y thing that came in it, but these are so great. So they're written to be just like postcards. So decorated to look like postcards. So these backs are all unique with different stamps and coloring and markings on them. And then each one has a message, as if Spirit itself has written you a letter. And this is the wordiest deck I've ever owned, and I love that about this. It literally feels like I've got happy mail. It really feels like I have happy mail, and I love that it's written that way. So this one says, "Dear you, there is a balance between activity and rest, ebb and flow. You can't have one without the other. If you are faced with an obstacle right now, the best course is surrender and non-resistance. Soon enough, you'll see how easy it is to flow around it. Now is one of those times when you must trust the river of your life. Go with the flow, and in no time you'll reach what you have your heart and hopes set on. Just remember, Spirit will keep your head above water and will direct the currents. When it's time for a greater effort, you'll know exactly when you'll need to work those manifesting muscles. It can be challenging to master the flow cycles of your life, but as you develop your skills, affluence will be yours. Enjoy the flow and trust those currents, for we're right there with you with our little umbrella drinks, smiling at your success. Love you so very much." This is written, I think I've mentioned this before, very much like Notes from the Universe, which is a favorite, was a favorite of mine for years. not a deck, but like it was an email that you could get, and it had notes like this. And I really just love this. It's super different than anything else I own. And I feel like if I'm going to reach for like a little encouragement or a little support, this just feels like it really gives so much that I don't think I want to let this one go. So I'm going to be keeping the postcards from Spirit, and I think I am going to be passing along the Personal Power Oracle deck. Our next pairing is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. I totally stuttered over the name. The Illuminated Earth Oracle versus the Sacred Destiny Oracle. Okay, before I get into my thoughts, I'm going to put up the poll so you guys can see how you guys voted in this pairing. So it seems like a pretty clear majority at about 62% at the time I'm filming this for the Illuminated Earth Oracle. So let's take a look at this one first. I mean, it's very unlikely that I would consider decluttering this deck. I don't know why I even matched it up, except for I did feel like these two were kind of falling into the same place in my collection, which I think is probably why. But, oh, let's pull out the cards. These are gorgeous. So I matched my copy in like a deep blue to match the backings here. I've had no desire to pick up the second deck by the same creator because I'm really enamored with this one. It's very expansive. I love these keywords, and I feel like there's something about this like sort of messy, sometimes more drawn, but most of the time very kind of fluid art, layered collage, paint. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it that I feel like really just encourages me to slow down and tap my wisdom a little bit, tap my intuition a little bit. And I do really enjoy that about this deck. I do find that it's really a good one to pair with like naturey decks. It's a really good one to pair with just earthier decks. I mean, it's very true to its name in the sense that it does have a very earthy feel. It feels very connected to the cycles of nature and to nature's power. And I feel like there are forces of nature that show up throughout this deck, as well as some interplay with people. I also feel like the card messages are really balanced. The keywords are really balanced. So you have light, dark, and neutral cards, in my opinion. And it just ends up being really multifunctional, multi-purpose. And it's just really interesting to me to work with this deck. I don't see that this is one that I could let go of at any point. So again, I don't know why that I pulled it in other than I felt like these two decks were kind of in a similar niche. But the Illuminated Earth Oracle is definitely a deck that is not going to be leaving my collection. But I did want to kind of realize, I guess, that Sacred Destiny was in the same place. And let's take a look at Sacred Destiny. So I have this in one of Peggy's divided bags with the book in one pocket and the deck in another. I feel like I'm not sure if I enjoyed working with the guidebook. I think I have to remind myself. I will say, gosh, this artwork is really pretty. One of my favorite things about this deck, though, not gonna lie, it's the backs. So here's the thing. I think I was this close to going, I might be ready to let this one go because I really don't reach for it very much. But I think that's because I just don't think of it. There's something about it. It just hasn't been front of mind. But I'm looking at these keywords and this art again, and I'm like, oh, but it's so pretty. And literally, I think it was yesterday, I decided to pair these decks quite some time ago in this category. But because they both feel very earthy, very naturey, very connected to landscape and power. Like, if I'm being honest, at the end of the day, I feel like this artwork is almost more my style than the Illuminated Earth. Excuse me. And I'm loving these keywords, new beginnings, fulfillment. These are really juicy keywords. Oh, sorry, I keep distracting myself. So what I was going to say is right before I filmed this video a couple days ago, within the last couple days anyways, I saw somebody talking about this deck on a video. I can't remember who off the top of my head, who had trimmed the sides and the top off this deck. And oh my gosh, I loved how it looked. So it just had the white border at the bottom with the keyword, and the artwork looked so much bigger and more expansive and gorgeous and stunning. And this deck isn't going anywhere. What was I thinking? I think I forgot there was a unicorn in this deck. And this was the selling point that Dustin showed me when he encouraged me to buy this deck. Oh, I love this inner peace card. Why haven't I reached for this? I think I need to hang this deck in the section of my rack where I know I put my most expansive Oracle decks, the ones that I can pair with just about anything, because this really would pair with just about anything. I just feel like it's just gotten forgotten in my collection. And this is the thing, when I feel like I personally have too much to choose from, that's one of the things that happens, is the stuff that I think I love the most just gets neglected. So this is going to actually, I think, just move into a more favored place in my collection. I'm not sure about the guidebook yet, so I may have to revisit the guidebook, but I definitely am keeping this. I'm keeping both of these. Yeah, that's definitely happening. Next up, I have the Healers of the Earth Oracle. Let's zoom us back out here. Next to the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. So before I get into my thoughts, let me just pop up the poll. So this one has definitely been neck and neck the whole time the poll has been available on my YouTube community tab, which, by the way, there are going to be more of these. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on the community tabs so that you see the polls when they come up. And you're always welcome to go back and vote, even on these polls, just to kind of make sure yours wins or whatever you want to do. But it's really fun to see how people's feelings and opinions are reflected in those polls. It's really fun. Okay, anyway. So it looks like you guys prefer the Healers of the Earth Oracle, but only by a few percentage points. So let's look at that one first. So the Healers of the Earth. Okay. This is such a great deck. It actually has quite a bit of depth, but my favorite thing about this deck, honestly, is the keywords and the key phrases. So the artwork, let me zoom us in, is really lovely. But you have, as you can see, a primary title. So here we have divine feminine, but then a few keywords underneath that: yin, feminine values, and maternal energy. And this reminds me a lot of my Tao Oracle, which has a similar sort of thing. It has its main keyword, and then it has several keywords underneath that to kind of give you jumping off points, which I love. Here's the thing that I've noticed now that I just can't seem to get past whenever I try to, and that's card's a good example of it, whenever I try to pair this deck with anything. And that is the specific art style used here is a 3D art style that reminds me of a software program called Poser. I don't know if you guys know about that program, but it reminds me of Poser art. It's like a 3D modeling type of thing. And there's something about this style of art which, while I appreciate, I find it doesn't mesh for me next to a lot of my decks. Cards like this, Fruitful Labors, really, really pretty. But as soon as there's figures in the deck, there's something about this that just pulls me away from the deck, or I find it distracting in some way. And I don't fully understand why. I think this deck is an amazing reader. It works well, very tarot-like in its own way. It's got a ton of depth. It's got really good balance. In theory, this should be one of my very favorite decks. And when I first got it in, I thought it was going to be a forever love. But I just found that because so often, here's another one that's very Poser-like to me, because something about that distracts me, I never reach for it, ever. Even though I love these color tones, this is one of my favorite cards, probably ever, in any Oracle deck. Braving the Storm, and she's out in the rain on the swing set. And I may have told this story when I did my unboxing of this video, but when I was going through some really difficult times as a child, and even later as an adult, it didn't matter what was going on in my life. If I was really upset, I would go find a swing set. So facing difficulties, finding courage and fortitude, this to me is so, part of me, I think, wants to keep the deck just for this card. But that's a me thing, right? And I think that's part of the thing that sometimes contributes to holding on to or even buying decks that I may not use because there's something really special or really poignant that comes through in just a card or two. But for me, I find that the vast majority of the deck has to also be something that I'm excited to reach for and work with. Not just because there's something there that feels like it's speaking directly to me, but because it's more useful than that. Do you know what I mean? And this is a great, great deck. So this originally came out in a glossy bordered version, and this is the version I have, which is the matte borderless. This cardstock is incredible, and it's edged in a matte silver, and it was the first deck I ever received, or ever bought rather, that had a matte silver as opposed to a matte gold. So I just thought that was the coolest thing. And there is a whole thing here around healing the earth. There is a whole bunch of themes here. You can work with the card backs, which have different sort of categories on them. There's a lot of stuff you can dive into working with the guidebook. So there's a lot to this deck, but to be honest, it's just not one that I find myself reaching for. So I think I am going to let this one go. But let's take a look at the Hero's Journey. So this one, I think the reason I pulled these side by side is because the same times I thought I would reach for Healers of the Earth with its ability to sort of, I guess, speak to the human condition in a way, I find myself reaching for the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle instead. Now, this is a Blue Angel deck, and I had gotten a tip recently that this may be coming out in that gorgeous new matte cardstock that Blue Angel's been putting out recently. I hope that's the case, but I haven't confirmed it. So I have a message into Blue Angel to find out if this is available in the new matte cardstock, and if so, how we can tell so that we can order that new version, or if we just maybe have to wait until they're out of stock, basically, of the old one. I don't know. But this is one of my most used mass market Oracle decks. And I think that's because this is one that I always want to reach for client readings. And so in that way, I feel like putting this next to Healers of the Earth is a great way for me to gauge how much do I love Healers of the Earth. Like, would I ever reach for this deck before I reached for this one? And I actually got that tip from my son, John, because when he was on Say Yes to the Deck with us, that was something he asked me a lot, was like, well, if you have a deck you like more, would you ever reach for this one instead of that one? And I was like, oh, no. And he's like, well, there you go. And I was like, oh, that's really smart. It's a good question to ask yourself. Like, when you're thinking of buying a deck, or if you're thinking of which deck you want to keep in your collection, or whatever it might be, is to ask yourself, or to compare it against something you know you love, and then to ask the question, would I ever pull this before I would pull this? And with this pairing, I think it's super clear what the answer is, because this is such a great reader. I love the theme of the hero's journey. I think it works really well. I love Rasuli's artwork. It is one of my favorites. Oh, it's so good. I love it so much. It really feels like you're in a dream when you look at this artwork. I guess I could have zoomed us in. There we go. It's so stunning. I don't mind the gloss. Like, I'm willing to work with it, even though it reflects all of my things, because it's just so good. And I think that's really, really telling. I really want this in matte cardstock. And here's a little surprise for any of you guys who have been watching this so far, or have watched this far, I guess I should say. So in my quest to find the new matte version of this deck, I did order a new copy, and I ended up with the exact same one I already have. So I got this in. I haven't done anything to it. I saw that it was glossy, and I put it back in its box. So I actually have an extra copy of the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle that I would like to give away to one of you guys. So if you are interested, I don't know why I was going to put that in my bag. This is my copy. If you're interested in a copy of the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, then all you have to do is comment down below something about a dream you've had recently, you feel like sharing something. Use the word dream in your comment, and I will know that you are interested in the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, and I will put you in for the draw. And what I'll do is, the next time I go live after I release this video, I will draw a name. So the deadline will be basically, it's kind of a bit of a crapshoot because I don't know for sure when this video is going up, but it will probably be a Wednesday following me releasing this video, because I usually go live every other Thursday for sure. So it'll probably be a Wednesday that I will stop accepting entries. So basically, if you're interested, get your comment in right away, and I will draw at the next live. So you'll want to keep an eye out for that so you know if your name was drawn. But it's a really beautiful deck. I ordered it. I just don't want to return it, because the reality is that a lot of times returns they don't necessarily get sold, and that just feels really wasteful to me when I could just pass this along. And then I've got a message into Blue Angel so I can hopefully track down the matte version. Once I do, if it does exist, or if it is going to exist, I will then probably be rehoming my glossy version to replace it with the matte version, because I love this artwork. I actually really love it glossy. I think it's beautiful glossy. It's just less practical for me because I have to be careful of the glare. So anyways, all of that to say, this deck is definitely staying in my collection. But yeah, I also have a spare. So that's going to be finding a new home through you guys, hopefully. Just as a reminder, whenever I do giveaways on this channel, I'll always say if this is ever not the case, but it's always open internationally as long as Canada Post will ship to you. So that's the only caveat, I guess I would say. So with that said, let's do a little recap. So I'm going to be keeping, let me move my Hero's Journey. Move that out of the way. I'm going to be keeping my Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, my Postcards from Spirit, my Illuminated Earth. Oops, let's get you in frame. My Lucky Potion Oracle, Sacred Destiny, Animal Speak Runes, and the guidebook for the Wild Messenger. I feel like I kept most of it. I think I did. I think I kept most of it. I'm going to be rehoming eventually after some time in a holding place, which if you don't remember what I've said about that, it's basically that before I trade decks or give them away or sell them or whatever, I usually store them someplace so I can see if I miss them first. But going is going to be the Healers of the Earth Oracle is going to be rehomed. The Personal Power Oracle by Deja Druitt. The Wild Messengers Alchemical Tarot, but just the deck, and the Tarot of Transformation. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 are leaving, and 6 are staying out of the 10 decks that I showed today. Whew, okay. I think I did pretty good, all things considered. I mean, it wasn't a total write-off. I'm definitely going to be rehoming some things. So yeah, these things are going to get put away for a little while so I can make sure I'm really truly ready and sure. And then they are going to be sent along to new homes. So, or put into trade or given to a local used bookshop or a charity shop or whatever. It all just depends. All just depends. But first, they're going to go into holding. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I would love to hear your opinions, feedback, thoughts below on my choices, or maybe you want to share more about what your choices would be in this situation. Tell me if you're doing a similar process. Do you look at decks that sort of fit the same niche in your collection and then try to figure out which one really is the one for you? Or do you like having variety in every niche? I'm very much a niche-driven person, right? Like I like to have things that have their special place in my world, in my collection, etc. And that goes with a lot of things. That's true of books. That's true of crystals, really. It's true of all the things I guess I collect, so to speak, or that I acquire. But I'm curious about your process. Do you find things like this helpful to you in being mindful of your own stuff? I'd love to hear down below. Thank you again so much for joining me. Please do remember to click like on this video if you enjoyed it or you found value in it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here so that you can see more videos like this. And as always, please do click the little bell so you're notified of all my future content. Thank you so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.